Hello trainers, Professor Palm here, and I'm really excited today because it's my birthday! That's right, today I'm another year older, and I also just got back from the Pokemon Center where Nurse Joy gave me this wonderful slice of cake. Chocolate, one of my absolute favorites. Well, I'm glad that you're here with me today. While we can get lots of delicious treats as well as some wonderful gifts for the birthday, I like to say that birthdays aren't about that. What they are is about spending time with friends and having fun. And seeing that all of you are here, I'm glad that I'm able to spend my birthday with as many of you as I can. For the last 2 years, since I've done 2 birthday specials, I've talked about 2 Pokemon that I really love. Of course, I started off with Lucario because Lucario is my favorite Pokemon of all time. And then last year, I talked all about Zoroark, because Zoroark is my favorite Pokemon of the 5th generation. Honestly, I really love these Pokemon, and they are some of my all-time favorites. But today, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to talk about the Pokemon that truly brought me into this world. And it's a very special one. I'm sure that we all have that one Pokemon that we really love, that also changed our lives forever, bringing us into this amazing world. For me, it's none other than Mew. This is the Pokemon that made me a Pokemon trainer and, down the line, a Pokemon professor. If I had not met Mew, things would not be the same. I'm just so glad that my wonderful cousin is the reason I met this Pokemon. It started many years ago. You see, we were at a flea market for summer vacation, and he gave me a pack of Pokemon cards to open. And of course, the first card in there was Mew. Not only that, but after that, we went home and watched Cartoon Network. Remember when Cartoon Network used to air movies randomly? Well, the first Pokemon movie was on, and the scene with Mew on the windmill was up. And I think that's the reason I really fell in love with it. Double the Mew. Oops, I meant to say triple the Mew, because later on that day, we were also watching the Mew event in the Generation 3 games. So, 3 for 3 is what made Mew my favorite Pokemon back in the day. I would honestly say that Mew is one of the cutest Pokemon ever. I mean, look at this Pokemon. Look at its adorable blue eyes and its beautiful pink body. Such a cutie. But would you expect that a little cute Pokemon like Mew would have so much lore behind it? I mean, it is actually insane how much lore Mew has. For starters, this is the Pokemon that coined the term Mythical Pokemon, because for so many years, no one actually knew if it was real. In fact, there's actually a theory going on that when Arceus created every Pokemon in the world, it wasn't the creation trio that was created first. Instead, it was Mew. Also, if you think about it, Mew was also used with its little fossil to make one of the strongest Pokemon ever, Mewtwo. And there's probably even more things that Mew has done. Wow. That's a lot of lore for such a cute little pink cat creature. If I am to be honest, I owe Mew so much. This is the Pokemon that not only made me a trainer and not only made me a Pokemon professor, but also got me into this amazing world. And I'm so glad that the day I met it was the day that changed my life forever. Today, for my birthday, I'm going to talk about this amazing new species Pokemon. It's one of my favorites of all time, and currently my favorite mythical Pokemon. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we need to talk about with Mew. Well, just like all the archaeologists many years ago who found the Mew fossil, I'm also going archaeology mode, because we're going to uncover so much lore and talk everything that we need to know about Mew. It's one of the greatest Pokemon out there, and it still has so many mysteries to it. In fact, one of my favorite movies, Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, scratched on some of them, but it really didn't uncover a lot. So, that's what we're going to do today. But before we do that, I also want to give a very special happy birthday shout out to Markiplier. That's right, Markiplier and I have the exact same birthday. Marky Moo, I wish you a wonderful day. I also want to give a very special thanks and shout out to Professor Sassafras herself for making this amazing thumbnail for my birthday. She's such a talented artist, and I'm glad to have a great friend like her. However, these aren't the only shoutouts that I'm giving today. I also want to give a very special thanks and shout out to Techrenova for my shirt. Today's Within shirt I'm wearing is called the DNA Within. As much as I love Mew, I also really like Mewtwo as well. So I couldn't think of a better shirt to wear than with both of them. I really love these shirts that Tekranova makes, and if you like them too, please check her out on Etsy. I have a link to her Etsy shop in the description below. Check her out and maybe buy a shirt. You'll look amazing in them. There is so much to learn about with this amazing Pokemon. Kind of funny that I want to learn today when it's my birthday. Well, as a Pokemon professor, it's my job to learn everything out there. So, let's uncover the mysteries of Mew. Mew, the new species Pokemon, is based on a domestic cat, as several of Mew's features, such as a short muzzle and large hind feet, are commonly found in cats. Its morphology is also vaguely similar to a jerboa, having large hind legs and a long, skinny tail. The habitat of Mew is completely unknown. Some people believe it likes to be in the jungle, as there's been a lot of cases of it being found there, and it likes wide open places. It's also believed that Mew was born in the jungle, but it can live anywhere. Mew has been around since the dawn of time, so it can live anywhere in the world and call it home. Despite being one of the most powerful Pokemon ever, Mew is a very playful, mischievous, and fun-loving goofball, as it likes to pull pranks and even mess with others. Mew has the power to appear and disappear at will. It can turn into other Pokemon easily by using Transform. Since Mew really likes to be a mischievous little Pokemon playing pranks on others, I guess you could say that it loves to play Masquerade, being the master of disguise. While Mew is very shy and will only show itself to those who are pure of heart, Mew can also read minds and understand emotions very well. This Pokemon can even read and write as it understands human speech. However, Mew is unable to speak our language. Even though Mew is shy, it gets along well with different humans and Pokemon, and once it makes friends, Mew will never risk its friendship. In fact, Mew will risk its life for its friends, as the bonds between people and Pokemon are the most sacred thing to it. You may not know this, but Mew actually has hair. When viewed under a microscope, Mew's short, fine, delicate hairs can be seen, and according to some researchers, Mew's DNA is said to contain the genetic code for all Pokemon in the world, because it's said that Mew is the ancestor of all. Since Mew has the DNA of all Pokemon, it can use any kind of move. Also, Mew has one of the coolest things ever, as it can adapt to any environment within just a few seconds, no matter what. Then again, this Pokemon has been around since the dawn of time. How else do you think that it's lived for so long? Mew's psychic powers are unlike anything else in the world. While it cannot create, like Arceus and Mewtwo, Mew does have the power of de-evolution. That's right, Mew can de-evolve Pokemon and also re-evolve them at will. It uses this not just with its psychic powers, but with its powerful brain. Because of all that amazing power, some researchers believe that Mew actually has two brains, the other one being within its tail. While nothing has ever been able to confirm this, it's only a theory. When in battle, for abilities, Mew has only one, being synchronized, which if Mew is burned, paralyzed, or poisoned by another Pokemon, it'll give the exact same status condition to that Pokemon. All Pokemon are unique and have some cool facts to talk about, since they've been around for a very long time. And Mew, being one of the oldest Pokemon of all, has some amazing things that we can talk about. I can't talk on every one of them. If I do, we'll be here all day long. So here's a few tidbits and fun facts on Mew. Mew is currently the only Pokemon with a date discovery. If you read any of the journal entries in the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar Island, you'll find out it was discovered on July 5th. Getting a shiny Mew in the second generation was technically impossible without hacking, since Mew was only given out in Generation 1, and it wasn't until Generation 3 where you could get a shiny Mew, with the Mew event and the old C map. However, you still couldn't access it unless you had a Japanese or Taiwanese copy of Pokemon Emerald, as the event never came to the United States or anywhere else. With the Alola games for Gen 7, Mew finally got its own signature move, being a Z move called Genesis Supernova. Even though Mew had been around since Generation 1, it took 20 years till it got its own signature move. If you love perfect EVs and IVs, Mew is one of the few Pokemon with perfect balanced stats. as all of them are perfect 100s. Until the 6th generation, Mew started a trend of every generation introducing a mythical Pokemon with a base stat total of 600. Even though back in the day, Arceus was the only Pokemon that could change its typing, Mew is currently the only Pokemon that can learn every as well as any TM, as well as HM when they were a thing. In Pokepark Wii, Pikachu's Adventure, Mew is a major character, and is also referred to in that game as a male, despite it being genderless in the core series games. For Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, and Explorers of Darkness, Mew is the guardian of the Grass Comet. In the first Super Smash Bros., Mew has a chance of 1 out of 151 to appear. In Super Smash Bros. Melee, it has a chance of 1 to 251. And in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, it has a chance of 1 to 493, which is actually a reference to how many Pokemon were out during the release of every Super Smash Bros. Game. Mew is tied with Muck for having the shortest English name of all Pokemon. As of Gen 9, Mew is the only Gen 1 Pokemon that has not appeared on any other regional Pokedex, other than Kanto and Johto's. Despite Mew's DNA being used to create Mewtwo, as well as the name Mewtwo, Mew comes after Mewtwo in the Pokedex, with Mew being 151 and Mewtwo being 150. Mew was a little-known secret when Pokemon Red and Green first released in Japan in 1996. Even Nintendo was not aware that Shigeki Miyamoto had programmed it into the game. This is because he created Mew within only 2 weeks before the game's development was finished. And at last, in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, you could get Mew without any cheats. All you had to do was use My Pokemon Ranch on the Wii. You need to talk to the NPC Haley, and she'll give you Mew. However, she does not hand over Mew for free, as there's a major catch. You need to trade her Pokemon. Not just a few, 999 Pokemon. It can be the same or it can be different. And at the time of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, that was almost double how many Pokemon we had. Mew has one of the coolest things ever, as it can transform into any Pokemon. Very similar to Ditto, it can become any Pokemon it wants, as well as have that Pokemon's strengths and even weaknesses. However, when it's just itself, Mew has its own pool of weaknesses. Being a pure Psychic-type Pokemon, Mew has 3 weaknesses, being common fears, as it's weak to attacks which are Bug-type, Ghost-type, and Dark-type. But Dark-type is a double whammy for Mew. Not only is it weak to these moves, but also Mew's Psychic-type moves won't do any damage to Dark-type Pokemon, as they're completely immune. It's upsetting that Mew is weak to the 3 common fears, Dark, Ghost, and Bug. However, Mew is usually a peaceful Pokemon who just loves to goof around. This Pokemon is such a pacifist, but if it needs to fight, Mew will not hold back. And being a pure Psychic-type Pokemon, Mew's Psychic moves get stabbed when it fights against Pokemon who are Poison-type and Fighting-type. While it may not have as many strengths in battle, Mew prefers the route of a pacifist, which is a good thing. Sometimes it's good to be peaceful, and it is one of the most peaceful Pokemon you'll ever meet, as well as a huge goofball. There's a reason this was one of my favorite Pokemon, and why it's been around for such a long time. I'm glad I met Mew all those years ago. It was the first Pokemon to ever be introduced, and it opened a door to me that changed my life forever. It truly was a fateful encounter that day I met this amazing Pokemon. We all have that one Pokemon we love and that changed our lives forever the day we met them. Without Mew, not only would I never have become a Pokemon professor, not only would I never become a trainer, but I don't think I would have loved Pokemon as much as I do. I owe everything to Mew. With such a cute little pink goofball, who'd have guessed that Mew has so much lore and mystery behind it? It really is a Pokemon unlike any other. We sure have had a lot of mythical Pokemon introduced over the years, but in my opinion, nothing will ever surpass Mew. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe it's because Mew means so much to me. Maybe it's the compelling mystery that surrounds it. Maybe it's because there's nothing else quite like it, and it has such a complex lore. Or maybe that question has no answer, but one day I'll figure it out. Arceus may be the creator of all living creatures in our world, but to me, Mew is the true creature that brought me into the amazing world of Pokemon, and I couldn't have met a better Pokemon. I'm glad that I met Mew that day, and all these years later, it's still one of my favorite Pokemon. I can't imagine the world of Pokemon without it. As I look back all these years later, it wasn't any day for me. It was the first day that I took my first unforgettable steps into a world unlike any other, which I guess you can call Origin Day. Look at Mew, such a goofball. Of course, this is one of the most powerful Pokemon out there, but it just likes to fool around. How can you not love this Pokemon? Did you enjoy learning about all the mysteries with Mew? Also, was there something new that you didn't know about Mew that you may have learned today? I'm glad that I finally got to say my honest thoughts and how much I really do like this Pokemon. But before we end this, I just have a few questions for all of you. As you know, Lucario, Mew, and Zoroark are some of my favorite Pokemon. When it comes to you, who are probably your top 3 favorite Pokemon? We've had a lot of mythical Pokemon introduced over the years. And in the 2D era of Pokemon, we had a lot of mythical Pokemon events. Who's your favorite mythical Pokemon introduced, and did you ever witness any of those mythical events? Did you know that Mew and Mewtwo make up the Mew duo? Out of this duo, who's your favorite of them? It's crazy to think that we had to wait till the 7th generation for Mew to finally get its signature move, but it was also a Z move, Genesis Supernova. If Mew could get another move, what do you think it should be called, and what do you think its effect should be? Mew was the Pokemon that introduced me to the world of Pokemon. For you, who was the Pokemon that introduced you as well as made you a trainer? And of course, since we have a new Legends game coming out, Legends Z to A, and we also have Pokemon Legends Arceus, do you think that Mew deserves its own lore game in a Legends game? Do you think it should be Pokemon Legends Mew? I'm so glad that I got to talk about Mew today with all of you trainers. It's been pretty nice to have you with me for my birthday. As always, spending time with friends on birthday is a great way to spend the day. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like. If you have any questions, you want to answer any of the questions I threw at you, you want to wish me a happy birthday, or you want me to cover something Pokemon related, whether it be a Pokemon line, current events, or even a game, then please comment. And as always, if you like what you saw and you want to see more, smash the subscribe button. Well, I'm another year older today, and I'm glad I got to spend it with all of you. Thanks for watching, trainers. Palm out.